One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, in the Toyota culture, I think, is Kaizen practiced like that? Is it practiced on an individual basis?
Oh, yeah. I'm definite about this, yes. It's not, again, you have very different stories according to who your coordinator is. In some cases, it's a very pleasant experience when the personalities click. And in some cases, it's a traumatic experience. For the same person, they also have several different coordinators, so they can, or different bosses, and they can have both. Sometimes they have a great experience, and sometimes they have a traumatic experience. But very clearly, they're asked as individuals to do Kaizen. There's no debate here.
Okay. Now, at the higher level, you talked a little differently about Kaizen. You looked at it as from an organizational level. Could you just touch upon that a little bit?
Well, if you take this idea that what is the waste you create, if you're the CEO of a company, can you imagine the waste you create by your technical decisions? When you decide suddenly to switch your supply base, when you decide to transfer the products to some other place because this is not working, delivering fast enough. All these decisions that CEOs make are based on, in our culture, based on the notion of creative destruction. If something's not working well enough, let's replace it by something newer that works better and burn it. Yes? It works. It works. I have no argument against it. It's been working wonderfully, and the US where it's done with more élan. It works fabulously, but it's also extremely wasteful. So this really applies. When CEOs learn to be more rational and empirical about their decision making because they use these Kaizen events as learning labs, and they start crafting their strategy more than making big swings, the company starts progressing also in the direction very strongly, but you don't have as much, you have the creativity, but you don't have as much destruction. So in a strange way, what Lean gives you at a very high level is this sweet spot between flexibility and efficiency. This is where usually companies are stuck between complete flexibility, but it's a big mess and huge muda, or efficiency, but it's very rigid because everything is routinized and then it can't cope with change. What Lean gives you is this: you can have both. You can have the cake and eat it, and the smile of the baker. You can have both. You can't have it. And this is what you try, that you teach people to deal with change in small ways, and you move them in change in big ways. So this is what you seek at a senior level. This is not Kaizen as you and I would do Kaizen in our job. This is more Hansei. This is reflect and review. But we use the Kaizen of individuals to test our policies, to test our strategies, and to constantly explore where we want to take this boat.
So when you talk about Hansei, is that something that we all should be practicing, though? And do we have time to do that? That's, I think, the big thing that maybe I'll go farther than just the Hansei part here is that when we sit there and, it's Kaizen spirit, continuously improvement, and, putting yourself first, you do all that, that means we got to have slack time to be able to do that. From being real efficient, we only need to operate at 60-70% efficiency because 30-40% we got to have slack time. Isn't that?
I'm not sure it's a question of time. We have a lot of we have a lot of time that is also thinking time. So we're all stuck in traffic. I'm sure you are. I take planes and trains and metros, and we have plenty of time. I think it's more. Can we face our problems? It's difficult. I'm past 45 and I'm still working with my dad, who is my sensei. Imagine that. And now I have a kid of my own, and I think it's beautiful because I've got it figured out. I mean, it's, oh, Dad, come on, you're ruining it. Dad, you don't understand. It's not my fault. It's so unfair. This is what I keep, and this is, of course, what my kid tells me. But then the funny part is I hear myself with my dad. Still now, at my age, when he makes a remark, of course, he's got his own inimitable style of making remarks, but when he makes a remark, I still react like this. That, Dad, you don't understand. It's not my fault. And I think that when you take the scientific method, you accept that when what happened confirms what you already knew. When it went well, you haven't learned anything. And you also accept once and for all that when things don't go well, you're learning. And the older you get, learning is not a pleasant experience when it's happening, because it's usually things are not going the way you thought they should go. It's usually very uncomfortable. Once you've accepted that, this is the source of your handshake. And it's you break away from this thing, Dad, you don't understand, it's not my fault. And you break away from this once and for all, and you say, well, it's not a question of fault. Something here happened that I didn't see coming. Yeah, things didn't work out the way I planned. It just happened very recently to me. I had a workshop, actually in the US. I had a workshop. I'm from Europe. It's a very different culture. And the workshop, which I was very confident in the workshop, and it didn't happen the way I thought. And it was not particularly pleasant experience, but it's always very interesting. And you get to that stage of mind when you say, well, you're fine, there's no ego in it, who cares, this time is past. But what happened? And it's very interesting because with the workshop organizer, we drew very, very different conclusions. So here is where the handshake is. The handshake, I don't think time is the issue. I think we have plenty of time to do it. The handshake is confronting our inner child and saying, Dad, you don't understand, it's not my fault. You confront this and say, no, of course it's not your fault, but you were in there, so you were party to whatever happened, and you didn't see it coming. How come? Let's explore this. And to take away all the guilt and all the blame and all the no blame, no guilt, that's the point. But simply think, my mental model didn't compute this that happened in reality. This is interesting because it will enrich my understanding of reality.
And I think it's interesting because it takes a pretty mature company to do this, doesn't it? Or a pretty mature set of individuals, maybe.
It just takes one. CEO.
And from
when the CEO starts driving down to the company, models, role models are very strong. And then those who can't cope with this leave, and all the others get to it.